Hello viewers, welcome to today's episode of Made Easy Clinic, brought to you by the PIC Construct for Higher Learning, aka the PIC Tutors. Today we are going to be looking at balancing of ionic equations in acidic and basic medium. Remember in the last episode, what we talked about in stoichiometry was balancing of chemical reactions using the algebraic method. And I'm very sure that if you followed the explanation very well, you would have understood the basics and the nitty-gritty in balancing what chemical equations using algebraic method. I told you we can balance chemical equations using the investigation method, that is if the equation is not cumbersome, but in cases where the equation is cumbersome, you can use the algebraic method to balance your chemical equation. Today we're going to be looking at balancing of ionic equation in acidic and in basic medium. How do we balance ionic equations in acidic medium, and how do we balance ionic equations in basic medium? I'm going to use just an example to explain both. So let's start with acidic medium. I'm going to pick a question from the PIC Tutors past question series. Now, let's see an example like this. I was asked to balance this equation Cn minus plus MnO4 minus to give me CnO minus plus MnO2. I have an equation like this. How do I balance this equation in acidic medium? Don't forget, I'm talking about acidic medium first. After this same equation, we are going to balance it in basic or alkaline medium. So let's start with acidic medium. How do I balance this equation in acidic medium? Now, the first thing you have to do is to split this equation into their half equations. What do I mean by their half equations? That's to the oxidation reaction and to the reduction reaction. Now, of course, you should know that from Cn minus to CnO minus, this is oxidation. Why from MnO4 minus to MnO2, this is reduction. Now, writing the half equations, I have Cn minus giving me CnO minus. This is oxidation. And then I have MnO4 minus to give me MnO2. By this, I said you should write the first step is to write the half equations. Write the half equations. Now, that is the first thing you ought to do, to write out the half equations. Now, you are going to pick each half equation. You don't just balance it the normal way you balance chemical reactions in algebraic method. No, we don't apply that here. Now, what do? Let's pick the first one here, the first half equation, which is Cn minus going to CnO minus. That's the oxidation half equation. I'm sure you can see it on the other side of the board. I want to pick this here. How do I balance Cn minus going to CnO minus? The first thing you ought to do in balancing any half equation in acidic medium, check other elements except oxygen. You are going to balance every other element except oxygen. On the reactant side, I have one carbon. On the product side, I have one carbon. That makes carbon to be balanced. On the reactant side, I have one nitrogen, and on the product side, I also have one nitrogen also. That makes nitrogen to be balanced. If I had two carbon here, which means I'll have to balance it here to also make it two carbon. But in this case, carbon and nitrogen are already balanced on both the reactant and our product side. So you must take note, you have to first balance every other element except oxygen. In this case, they are already balanced. Now, how do I balance oxygen? You are going to balance oxygen with water. What do I mean by balancing oxygen with water? You will add oxygen to the side with lesser amount of oxygen. Sorry, you will add water to the side that has lesser amount of oxygen. What do I mean? I have one oxygen here, but I have no oxygen here. The reactant side in this case is the side that has lesser or no amount of oxygen at all. This side has one oxygen and this side has no oxygen. What's the difference? One. That means, don't forget, we are going to balance this with with water. And how many water? That's one water. Now you can see that 1 mole of water has one atom of what? Of oxygen. So oxygen is already balanced. Now, in the course of balancing oxygen, I've introduced what? A stranger into the equation. Someone who wasn't in the equation before. And who is that person? Mr. Hydrogen. Now, I've introduced two hydrogen here into the equation, which means we also have to what? To balance this. Now, how do I balance hydrogen? I'm going to balance hydrogen with what? With hydrogen ion. I'm going to balance hydrogen with what? With H+. Don't forget, I balance oxygen with water, and in balancing my hydrogen that comes with water now, I'm going to balance it what? With hydrogen ion on the other side of what? Of the equation. Now, I have what? 2 hydrogen here, which means on this side, I'm going to balance it with what? With 2H+. Now, with this, you will see that what? I've balanced this equation atomically, because in balancing ionic equations, I have to first balance atomically, then balance ionically. That's balancing the charge. Now, with this, I have 1 carbon on the reactant side. I have 1 carbon on the product side. I have 1 carbon on the 1 nitrogen on the reactant side, 1 nitrogen on the product side, 2 hydrogen on the reactant side, 2 hydrogen on the product side, 1 oxygen on the reactant side, and 1 oxygen on the what? On the product side. So atomically, this equation is balanced, but that does not mean it is balanced ionically. How do I balance ionically? That's balancing the charge, is what I mean now. Now, follow me. For Cn-, the charge here is -1. For H2O, it has no charge, it is 0. For CnO-, the charge here is -1. For H+, the charge here is what? You can see I have 1+ here, but I have 2 hydrogen ion. That's 1 hydrogen ion plus another hydrogen ion, which means I have +2 here. Now, for the reactant side, the net charge on the reactant side is -1. While on the product side, the net charge on the product side is what? Is +1. How then do I now balance the charge? You are going to what? Remove electron from the side that is more positive. What do I mean? The net charge here is what? -1. Why the net charge here is what? Is +1. Which means what? The product side will have to lose 2 electrons. The product side will have to lose what? 2 electrons, so as to be balanced with what? With the reactant side, which is what? -1. So what do I have to do? I just come here to say what? +2E-. I believe this is clear. Now, my equation for this guy, and I have what? Cn- plus H2O, giving me CnO- plus 2H plus 2E-. I've just rewritten this here. The next, don't forget, what I did was to balance what? The oxidation half equation. The next thing is to balance the what? The reduction half equation. I apply same rule. What I did here is also what I'm also going to what? Apply here. Now, how do I balance it? Don't forget, I have MnO4- going to what? MnO2. Now, how do I balance this? Don't forget, the first thing to do is to balance every other element except oxygen. What's the other element here? Manganese. Manganese here on the reactant side is just 1, and the manganese on the product side is 1. So manganese is already balanced. Now, how do I balance oxygen? How many oxygen do I have on the reactant side? 4. How many do I have on the product side? 2. Now, what's the difference? 2. Don't forget, you are going to add water. You are going to add water on the side with lesser or lower amount of what? Of oxygen. In this case, the side with lesser amount of oxygen is the product side. It needs just 2 oxygen to make it 4, which means I'm going to add what? 2 water. Remember, we balance oxygen with what? With water. That's plus what? 2H2O. Now, we've introduced a stranger again. That same stranger that was introduced here, we have introduced it here again. That's hydrogen. How do I balance hydrogen? I balance hydrogen what? With H+. I'm balancing with H+ because this what? This involves acidic medium. Balancing in acidic medium. When we get to basic medium, I'm going to what? Tell you what we're going to balance with. By now you should know what it is. If balancing in acidic medium will what? Will be H+. Then basic medium or alkaline medium should be what? OH-. Now, I have what? 4 hydrogen here, which means I'm going to balance what? The hydrogen with what? With hydrogen ion on this side with lesser amount of hydrogen. That's what? Plus 4H plus. With this, I have what? Mn, 1 Mn, 1 Mn, that's 1 manganese, 1 manganese, 4 oxygen, 2 plus 2, 4 oxygen. I have 4 hydrogen, and I also have what? 4 hydrogen. Which means what? Atomically, this equation is what? Is balanced. Then the next thing is to balance what? Ionically. I can play with it. I can say chargically. So let's balance it chargically. That's balancing the charge. Now, that means that over here, I have minus 1 and I have plus 4. That's for the reactant side. Here I have 0. Here I have 0. On the reactant side, the net charge here is going to be plus 3. And on the product side, the net charge here is going to be what? 0. Now, what happens? This side is plus 3, this side is what? 0. I told you that what? The more positive side we should what? Should lose electron, or is going to lose electron. Now, the more positive side in this case is what? Is the reactant side. Now, for it to be balanced with this guy, or with the product side, this reactant side will have to lose what? 3 electrons, so as to become 0. So, I will come here and say plus 3E minus. Very simple. Now, I'm going to write out these two equations together. That's Cn minus plus H2O to give me CNO minus plus 2H plus 2E minus. And then what again? MnO4 minus plus 4H plus 3E minus to give me MnO2 plus 2H2O. Now, the next thing is to what? Add these equations together. But before then, I'll have to cancel out these what? Electrons. And how do I cancel out these electrons? Don't forget that there are some people we call spectators in a reaction. Those are the people who don't take part in the chemical reaction. Now, once you are occurring on both sides of the equation, you are what? You are a spectator and shouldn't be what? Part of the reaction. We have to cancel out these electrons. We must make sure this cancel out. But here I have 2 electrons. Here I have what? 3 moles of electrons. How do I go about cancelling it out? This means that I will have to multiply this equation by what? I'll have to multiply this equation by 3, and I will multiply this one by what? By 2. The first equation multiplied by 3 and the second one multiplied by what? By 2, because I want to cancel out what? The electrons. If I multiply through this equation by 3, then this will be 3 here, plus 3 times this will be 3 here, plus 3 times CNO minus. This will be 3 here, plus 3 times 2 is 6. I'm raising my 2, and I'm putting 6, plus 3 times 2 here will be 6. I believe this is clear. Same way, I'm also going to multiply this equation by what? By 2. So there will be 2 here, plus 2 times 4 is 8. 8 here, plus 2 times 3, 6. There will be 6 here. 2 times this will be what? Will be 2. And then 2 times 2 is 4. I believe this is clear. Having done this, then the electrons can what? Can then cancel out. I can now add both equations together, but taking note of those that are still what? Spectators. Now, let me check if I have any spectator in this reaction. Cn minus is just here, not occurring on both sides. H2O is here, H2O is here. But then I have to take note of what? Of their number of moles, their coefficient. I have 3 moles of water here. I have 4 here, which means 3 moles of water are actually what? Spectators in this reaction. They are not taking part. So I will cancel out these 3. Then 4 minus 3 is 1. So I still have a mole of water left in the equation. Then who again? I have H plus, that's hydrogen ion. I have 8H plus here, I have 6H plus here, which means 6 moles of hydrogen ion are acting as what? Spectators in this reaction. And I cancel out this, then 8 minus 6, this will be 2. I can now go ahead to what? To add both equations together. So then I have 3Cn minus plus 2MnO4 minus plus 2H plus to give me 3CNO minus plus 2MnO2 plus H2O. How do I know if my answer is correct? First, let's check the number of atoms of each of the elements. The number of moles of each of the elements, if they are correct. I have 3 moles of carbon here, I have 3 carbon here, 3 nitrogen here, I have 3 nitrogen here. 2 manganese here, I have 2 manganese here. This is 8 oxygen here. I have, this is 3 plus 4 is 7 plus 1, that's 8. I have 2 hydrogen here and I also have what? 2 hydrogen here. Atomically, this is balanced. But the fact that it is balanced atomically does not mean it is balanced ionically. Let's check if the charges are balanced. On the reactant side, I have -3, I have -2, and I have +2. On the product side, I have -3, I have 0, I have 0. The net charge on the reactant side, -2, we cancel -2. So the net charge on the reactant side is -3. And the net charge on the product side is also what? -3. We can see that the charges are also what? Balanced. That tells me that what? This equation is what? Is balanced already in what? In acidic medium. This is how to balance what? A chemical equation in what? In acidic medium. This is my final answer. Now, what if I were told to balance this equation in what? In basic medium. How do I balance this equation in basic medium? There are some cases you may be given that you are asked to balance an equation in basic medium. And sometimes you may not have the idea of balancing the equation in basic medium, but you know how to balance in acidic medium. How do you go about changing your answer from acidic medium to basic medium? All you just have to do is to interchange the hydrogen ion and the what? And water. But when interchanging them, just take note that what? The hydrogen ion will now become what? OH minus. That is because this represents what? Basic medium. But the H plus represents what? Acidic medium. Now, which means that what? This same equation, if I go through the steps correctly to balance it in what? In basic medium, my answer should be 3Cn minus plus 2MnO4 minus plus, don't forget, this will no longer be here. Water will replace it. They are interchanging position. So water will come here. Then to give me what? 3CnO minus plus 2MnO2 plus, now water is no longer here. This person is coming to this way, but it no longer retains this identity of H plus. It's going to be what? OH minus. That's 2OH minus. So if I'm to balance this equation in basic medium, this should be the answer I will get if I go through the steps correctly. Now, let's do that. I want to balance this equation in what? In basic medium. I want to balance this equation in basic medium or alkaline medium. I want to balance this equation in basic or alkaline medium. Same way we were coming, or same way we did it for acidic medium. We are going to write out the what? The half equations. Now, the half equations are these we've written before. That's Cn minus going to CnO minus, and then MnO4 minus going to what? MnO2. Write out the half equations. Here they are. Now also, we're also going to pick them one after the other to balance them atomically and what? And ionically. So let's do that. Now, how do I balance this in basic medium? Cn minus going to what? CnO minus. Same step or similar step. Balance every other element except what? Oxygen. What are the other elements here? Carbon and nitrogen. Carbon, I have one carbon here, I have one carbon here. That is balanced. One nitrogen here and one nitrogen here. That's also balanced. Now, how do I balance my oxygen? Don't forget, for acidic medium, we balance oxygen with water. For basic medium also, we're also going to balance oxygen with water. But the difference here is that for acidic medium, we added the water on the side that has lesser amount of oxygen. But for basic medium, we are going to add that water to the side that has more amount of oxygen. I believe this is clear. So let's play. Now, I'm going to balance oxygen with water. How many oxygen do I have here? 1, which means A mole of water has what? 1 oxygen in it. This same side that has more oxygen, I'm going to add water. Now, don't forget, in acidic medium, we balance oxygen with water, but we add the water where we have what? Less amount of what? Of oxygen. But for basic medium, we are adding the water where we have what? More amount of what? Of oxygen. Now, I have introduced a stranger into this what? Equation. That's hydrogen. In acidic medium, I balance hydrogen with what? With H+, but here it is different. In basic medium, I balance hydrogen with what? With OH-, showing that what? This is what? Basic medium. Now, to balance this becomes what? What? Plus, how many hydrogen? 2. That's plus 2 OH-. Let's check if this is already balanced atomically. I have 1 carbon here, I have 1 carbon here. 1 nitrogen, I have 1 nitrogen. 2 oxygen, 1 plus 1, 2 oxygen. I have 2 hydrogen, I have 2 hydrogen. Which means this is what? Already balanced atomically. The next thing is to balance what? Ionically or chargically. Now that means what? Here I have -1, I have -2, I have -1, I have 0. The net charge on the reactant side is -3, while the net charge on the product side is -1. Don't forget, -1 is greater than what? -3. Now, I told you that the more positive side will definitely lose what? Electrons. Now, how many electrons does this guy have to lose to become -3? Which means the product side will have to lose what? 2 electrons. So as to be balanced with what? With -3. Now, this means the equation there is what? Cn- plus 2OH- to give me CnO- plus H2O plus 2E-. Now, let's pick the next equation. That's MnO4- to give me MnO2. We balance every other element except oxygen. I've repeated this times with that number. So I have 1 manganese here, I have 1 manganese here. So manganese is the only other element except oxygen here. So manganese is balanced. Now, how do we balance oxygen? Don't forget, we balance oxygen with what? With water. How many oxygen do I have here? 4. How many oxygen do I have here? 2. What's the difference? 2. And where do I add the water? I add the water on the part in the equation on the side that has what? More oxygen. In this case, the reactant side has more what? Oxygen. Now I'm going to balance it with what? With 2 water, because their difference here is what? Is 2. So then plus what? 2H2O. I've introduced hydrogen into this equation. Don't forget, in basic medium or alkaline medium, we balance what? Hydrogen with what? With OH-. How many hydrogen do I have here? 4. Then I come to the other side of the equation to say 4OH-. With this I have done, I've balanced this equation atomically. The next is to balance it what? Ionically. 1 manganese, 4 oxygen plus 2, that's 6. 2 plus 4, that's 6. Hydrogen 4, hydrogen 4. Atomically it is balanced. Now, the charge. Here I have -1. Here I have 0. Here I have 0. Here I have -4. The net charge on this side, on the reactant side, is -1. And the net charge on the product side is what? -4. Now, this side has what? This side is more positive than what? Than this side. So, this side of the equation, the reactant side, will have to lose what? 3 electrons. 3 electrons. Now, don't forget, we have to add these 2 equations together. But first, we have to make sure these electrons are what? Are cancelled out. So, which means I'm multiplying this equation by 3 and I'm multiplying this equation by what? By 2. Multiplying it by 3, I have what? 3Cn- plus 3 times 2, 6OH- to give me 3CnO- plus 3H2O plus 6E-. Then same thing here, or similar, 2MnO4- plus 4H2O plus what? 2 times 3, 6E- to give me 2MnO2 plus 8OH minus. Having done this, electrons can cancel out. Who are the spectators? Who are they? I have 6OH minus here, I have 8OH minus here. So which means 6 of this will cancel out. 8 minus 6 is 2. Who again? Water. I have 3 water here. I have what? 4 here. So 4 minus 3, 1. I think there's no other person. So add the equation. That will be 3Cn minus plus 2MnO4 minus plus H2O. So give me 3CnO minus plus 2MnO2 plus 2OH minus. I believe you can see that following the steps to balance this equation in what? In basic medium, we also arrived at this. You can see that they are similar. I told you how to change your answer from acidic medium to basic medium. This was what we arrived at. And in following the steps to balance it in basic medium normally, to follow the trend, this is also what we get. So you can see that if you don't know how to balance in basic medium, you can know how to balance it. If you know how to balance it in acidic medium, you can know how to change your answer to basic medium. I told you just simply change the position of the H2O and the H plus, but the H plus will change its identity to become what? OH minus. So with this well explained steps, I'm very sure that by now you would have, or you'll be able to balance ionic equations in what? In acidic medium and in alkaline or basic medium. Thank you for listening. Do well to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode.